So we were talking about civil disobedience a moment ago, Derek J., and of course you are notorious in some circles for being a civilly disobedient. I also have done a share of it as well. You and I have been collectively behind bars in a jail cell. I think, we got about 4 months total between the two of us. You were there for a couple months. I was there for a couple months.
Yep.
We didn't hurt anybody. We just engaged in some civil disobedience and some non-cooperation. And it turns out that when you do that stuff, some people get their cage rattled.
But I wish more people would, honestly.
Do civil disobedience?
Yeah, or in other words, follow their own conscience. I think if more people would follow their own conscience, the world would right itself.
I totally agree. I think everybody would be safer from the aggression of the people calling themselves the state if people didn't just bend over for these bullies, for these government agents who think they know what's best. They want to tell you how to live your life. They want to force you to do things you don't want to do and force you to not do things that you do want to do. And it's just ridiculous.
Right. Especially things when you're not hurting people. I mean, obviously, if you're infringing on other people's rights, that's another story.
Yeah, thank you for pointing out the obvious. I guess it does have to be pointed out sometimes. I'm talking about actions that do no harm to others, and those actions should be legal if committed with consent of all the parties involved. I don't see what the problem with that is. But civil disobedience is a way to bring attention to an issue. So if cannabis is illegal, smoking it in public is a way to, and then being arrested for it is a way to bring attention to that issue. Of course, you don't have to smoke the pot. There was actually Andrew Carroll who moved here before you did, Derek J. He stood in public and held a bud of marijuana in his hand.
He wasn't a smoker.
At the time, he was not a smoker.
Oh,
and
things changed? Okay. Shows how out of touch I am.
The police arrested him for that. And it was just, the whole thing was ridiculous from start to finish. Not the holding of the bud, but the way the police responded to it, as though it was some sort of criminal act, as though, people needed to be forced, the taxpayers like you, needed to be forced to pay to take that young man, put him in handcuffs, take him down to the jail or the police station, book him, release him, and then put him in a jail cell. Ultimately, I think he spent about 2 weeks in jail when he was convicted of that. And I don't know if you know the story there, but he actually walked out to the jail, which at that time was a different jail. It was much further away than the current jail. It was like a half-hour drive to get to that jail. He actually
started out pretty early in the morning.
Yeah. He actually walked there to turn himself in.
Wow.
As a protest. Pretty cool stuff. So anyway, when you do civil disobedience, it's going to rub people the wrong way. And so civil disobedience here in New Hampshire has always been this kind of controversial thing. And I mentioned New Hampshire because if you're new to the show, and we do have a new affiliate in Raleigh, North Carolina tonight, Talk Radio 850, welcome aboard to all the listeners there. You'll learn about the Free State Project as you're listening to Free Talk Live. Now, Derek J., what is the Free State Project?
The Free State Project is an idea of moving 20,000 liberty-loving individuals to the same geographic location to get active for liberty in our lifetime. And I am one of those people. I signed up at freestateproject.org saying that I intend to move to New Hampshire when 20,000 others agree to do the same. But I got too eager and just moved early, moved anyway.
There's about 1,500 or 1,600 of us that have done that.
That's right.
And I realized that I don't need to wait for all 20,000 to sign up. There's already really exciting stuff going on, and I don't want to miss it. I have to be a part of it. Yeah. So I moved up here early, and it's been the best decision of my life.
I have to agree, totally with what you've said there. And there was already stuff happening here in 2004, 2005, right after New Hampshire was chosen. There were 10 candidate states for where the destination was going to be for the Free State Project. New Hampshire won overwhelmingly, and people immediately started to move, and they started to do things that were, showing up on our radar here because I was paying attention to what was happening there. And I thought, gosh, I've got to be there. I've got to be there if for no other reason to record what's happening, to, talk about it on my radio show. And of course, the positivity of the movers here infected me, and the civil disobedience brought me in, and I became one of the civil disobedience as well. We did some civil disobedience today, sort of, some non-cooperation.
But that's not necessarily what the project's about. I mean, let's not forget that...
no, there's politics. People are getting elected.
And very successfully.
Liberty-minded people are actually getting elected as Republicans and Democrats here in New Hampshire, and they're introducing legislation to actually roll back some government and stop some bad legislation, things like that. So it's been an amazing experience from all different aspects. But you and I did a little bit of civil disobedience, maybe non-cooperation.
I didn't even realize we were doing it today, honestly. It was just so natural.
Right. Once you do enough of it, it's just, it comes secondhand. And what was happening was we were at court to support a local activist who was challenging a speeding ticket, which is also non-cooperation, when you don't just pony up the cash for your speeding tickets and you instead take them to trial and make the state people work for their convictions. We were there, and it turned out it was a pretrial conference, not an actual trial. The prosecutor, this is where the prosecutor sits down with you and attempts to pitch you on taking a plea deal. They want you to just, make it go away. And that's what most people want. They don't want to go to court.
Well, let's not, far fewer than 1% of cases in this country result in a trial. So arrests to trial, far fewer than 1%. Best I can tell, it's fewer than 0.25%. That's a really small amount. Fewer than like 1 in 500.
So this prosecutor is calling people in one by one into a conference room in the courthouse, and that's where the deal's being done. And he wants you to take the plea, whatever it is he's offering. And so he calls up the young lady who is in question here with this case, and she's got 7 people, I think, there to support her at this pretrial conference.
That's incredible.
Which is a lot. Well, a lot of us thought it was actually going to be a trial, so that may have affected why more people came out. And it's a common, a lot of people, it's your first time in court. You don't know one hearing from another. You get a piece of paper from the court saying, be here or you're going to jail.
Sounds like a trial.
Yeah, sounds like it's pretty important. So he calls her up, and Derek, you and I and Garrett, Ian, we all have video cameras, and we start approaching, and the other folks start approaching as well, all to go into this tiny little conference room where it would likely have been standing room only. And this he immediately starts saying that he doesn't consent to being video recorded. And
too bad, buddy. You're already on.
You should have been taking a government paycheck because you're a public servant. Public servants on public property deserve to be viewed by the public. See, this is really the problem in this country, is that people that work for the public believe that they work for the private sector. They think they're the masters when, in fact, they're supposed to be the servants.
Well, there's no evidence they actually work for you, Mark.
Yeah, it's the God's honest truth. The fact is they are the masters, and they lie to you and tell you they're the servants.
Yeah, they are the public when you talk about public servants. They serve themselves. But we'll talk more about what happened here in moments and why some people are really upset at us. It's Free Talk Live. Kind of recapping a little bit of what happened today. Derek J., you, myself, and several other people were out to support a local activist who was challenging a speeding ticket. When her name was called, the prosecutor beckoned her into the office, and he says, "Whoa, I don't consent to being recorded," because I started approaching, Derek, you started approaching with a video camera.
Well, that's awesome because we didn't ask you.
"I don't consent to being recorded, and I will only allow one other person to come in with her." And my perspective on this, which I voiced, was that, well, wait a minute, aren't you a police officer? Don't you work for the government? But more specifically, aren't you a police officer? And in point of fact, this guy is a police officer. As I understand it, he had a badge on, as a matter of fact. And the court decisions that have come out recently, the Glick decision. There's actually a fresh one out of Texas with Antonio Bueller.
Yep. Really, police officers in America, really. You don't get to consent whether you're being recorded or not.
Right, and it doesn't matter if you're not in public. I mean, he was going to be going into a private conference room in a private building, I guess. It's a public building, but
police officers of America, if you decide to arrest somebody because they're recording you and you just make up some, charge like disturbing the peace or whatever, really, if that person takes it to trial, there's really going to be a judgment against your department. And I don't know how that goes at your department, but I can tell you enough of those judgments is going to affect the insurance on your department, and that's going to affect the community that you're supposed to be serving. I know largely you don't care about any of those things.
I also want to back up and also talk about what's really happening here. Is this girl was accused of driving in an unsafe manner, but of course no victim. Yeah. And then a man with a gun pulls her over, insists with a piece of paper that she appear somewhere at a certain time and day
or
at
else.
a certain building. Right. And then more men with guns are coming to negotiate with her in a private room. They want to be off the record.
Oh, yeah.
This doesn't sound like a friendly government servant type situation.
No, it doesn't sound like any form of service to me.
Well, as far as I've come to the conclusion that speeding tickets are essentially just it's just a revenue stream that is not even intended to keep us safe. The fact is that police officers out there can't catch a speeder on a regular basis. If you're a speeder, you might get caught every 10,000 times, maybe every 1,000 times, every 10,000 times. If you catch somebody that infrequently, then you're not going to stop the behavior. It doesn't really matter what you do other than roadside
Obviously,
execution.
checkpoints on every block.
Well, I think that if you really want to stop speeding, and I think that many of the speed limits are artificially low, but if you really wanted to stop that, then a speed camera on the side of the road, checking people's licenses or whatever, doing those, what do they call this, the speed ticket things.
Yeah.
That would be a way to do it.
It's not a good idea, though, because then you're creating a police state. And then you've got these private companies sending out tickets to people who
there's no
own
reason
the
it has to
car.
be.
They're not even the driver.
It's no reason there has to be private public collusion on this one. But I get what you're saying, and I have a concern in that area too. But let's not pretend this is about speeding.
Yeah, that's all you're saying.
The fact is that if somebody comes, this guy, I'm speeding down the road going 15 miles an hour over the limit. Some guy coming from the opposite direction flips on flashing lights, goes 35 miles an hour over the limit to catch me. Right. Then pulls me off to the side of the road with flashing lights. I'm a volunteer firefighter. I can tell you flashing lights on the side of the road cause accidents because I've seen it happen at 2 accidents I've been at. I've seen other accidents occur right there.
Yeah, everybody's being a looky-loo, looking and seeing what's going on with the accident rather than paying attention in front of them.
So this guy, he didn't talk to me. I mean, it seems like when a person, like a government bureaucrat, doesn't want to be on camera, they choose one. Like, you're in charge here. You're the tallest. Like you just... It's like cop mentality or something, right?
This was a pretty quick interaction, too. Like, he came out...
But there were like 3 video cameras focused on him, at least.
And, he wanted to scurry away into the shadows.
Well, he wasn't complaining about the government's own security cameras, by the way. Those were okay.
Those will be fine inside the office.
Well, those don't record audio, so he wouldn't get his whatever he was going to say, which he never got to.
You wouldn't know if he's recording audio in that room or not. But as far as he's concerned, it's okay for him to record.
Sure.
As far as they're concerned, it's not okay for you to record.
Yes, it's not wiretapping when they do it. And their law even makes it clear if it's a law enforcement officer who's wiretapping, recording people without their consent, that's legal.
On the other hand, I have to give cred for him even valuing the idea of consent. Like, in most cases, police don't care about consent.
He only cared about his own.
Only his own, yeah.
Well, okay, but at least he's lending tribute to the idea that consent matters.
But it shouldn't matter in his circumstance, right? He's a government bureaucrat. In New Hampshire, I think it's Article 8 of the New Hampshire Constitution says these guys are supposed to be open and responsive, and this guy was anything but.
Yes, but I don't believe in those silly rules that they're supposedly right. They don't believe in them, and neither do I.
But it's fun to cite them in their face.
Yeah,
and
but let's not
you're not
pretend
even following your own rules.
Yeah, but let's not pretend that they're going to hold themselves to their own standard. The reality is, consent does matter.
The point of pointing it out is to show other people who don't know that. Right?
I just want to be nice when I'm having an interaction with someone who says, hey, I don't consent to that. I want to take that seriously because I do believe consent matters. And I want to just gently explain to this guy, like, yes, I get that you don't consent to this interaction, but see, this whole thing that's happening here is not consensual. You're forcing this young lady to go into this private room. If you're going to do that, then I'm going to be here to record. You're a public servant. Or so you claim to be.
That's the claim. He scurried off. He actually told the young lady in this case that if we wanted to record, he was just not going to meet with her and we'll just go straight to trial. Which, of course, would likely have been the outcome of the meeting anyway, would be that they would have gone to trial. So, meeting didn't happen. And we left. Toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. Oh, and we have footage. And Derek J. will be putting that up at some point. Free Keen, you going to drop it up there?
Yep.
All right, freekeen.com. We'll come back with more Free Talk Live here in moments. Your calls about anything. Bureaucrats misbehaving. That's what we are kind of talking about right now with a slimy police prosecutor, refusing to conduct a plea deal session, conduct what they call a pretrial conference on video, on the record. And it was the wish of the person who was going to attend that conference that this conference be held on the record. And if a government bureaucrat is going to talk to you, then they should be willing to have that conversation on the record. Otherwise, what is it that they're trying to hide?
And what would happen if this person didn't come and meet with them?
Probably a failure to appear would be issued, although I don't know if that would happen on a pretrial conference. I wonder what would transpire in a pretrial conference, because you're not in front of a judge, so I don't know if failure to appear would actually apply there. They may just set the trial for they may just set a trial date and move ahead. Well, I don't know, though.
Yeah, but even not knowing, I think, is scarier than anything. Like, oh, I just have to appear. I have to be at this building. I don't know what they're going to say. I don't know what's going to happen. And it's just such a scary situation over just a speeding ticket.
Yeah, absolutely
Ridiculous.
is. So we'll get you the video footage up soon at freekeen.com. Stay tuned there.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.